Hello everyone and welcome back to day 9 of our F125 Hot Lap and Setup Series guide. Yes, the series where of course we help you learn how to race on F125 and also give you a setup to hopefully make your racing just a little bit better. Of course, if you missed out on the video that went live yesterday from Monaco, I would highly recommend going back and checking it out. Today though, we return here to Barcelona. Of course, this place used a long time for Formula 1 testing, but is going to be off the calendar next year, unless something happens in Madrid between now and then. Inside F125 though, I actually really like this circuit. It's the first game where kind of the changes that were made to the real circuit feel good in the game. The AI can be a little bit OP here, especially in the early seasons where tyre wear is a big issue, but at least you're not having to manage the rubber like you had to on F124, so temperature management isn't as bad as it was on last year's game. As always, timestamps will be linked down below. There'll be obviously the setup, the track guide, and of course the hot lap right at the end. Get yourself subscribed if you're new. We're trying to hit 15k subs on the channel as well, if these help you out. And yeah, let's head then first of all, as always, into our track guide. Or making our way then in through the final couple of corners then as we prepare to start a lap here from Barcelona. In time trial or qualifying trim, these final two turns are completely flat out. In race trim, they're going to be close, but especially if you're tucked up in under the wing of the car in front, you probably aren't quite going to be able to attack these as flat as you would like to. But of course, a huge run down in towards turn 1 here in Barcelona, so we want to keep the car over on the left hand side. Of course, you got braking marker boards from quite a long way out. In race trim, I would be braking just after the 100 meter board, but in qualifying trim you want to brake pretty much at this little grey mark in the road, if not slightly before. Bring the car from 8th gear all the way down into 3rd first apex, avoid the sausage curb on the inside, short shift up to 4th, try to attack the curb again, avoiding the sausage curb on the inside, but you are completely flat out through turn 2. Through turn 3 though, again you're going to be cycling up through the gears. Once again you're going to be completely flat out, especially if we're in qualifying trim. Race trim you might have to blend out the throttle slightly, but you are always better blending out early in the corner rather than late for of course this run up in towards turn 4. Bring the car back over to the left hand side. Again you want to be braking at the 50 meter board or just as you go under the gantry as well. From 7th gear all the way down in towards 3rd, I like to go down the extra gear into 3rd just to make sure that you get the front end to bite. Otherwise, the exit of this corner can be very, very understeery. 4th gear on the exit. Of course, bring the car right over to the left-hand side, but keep rotating it round. You want to be aiming for the 50 meter board, kind of attacking it at about a 45-degree angle. Straighten up the car, and just as you get to the bump, you want to be going back down the gears in towards 2nd. Of course, be really, really careful here. If you're trying to let another car by, that you don't then understeer out wide into them and try and barge them off the road, especially if you've already made some angry comments on the radio as well there. Through the hairpin, try to go for a nice late apex, get up into 3rd gear on the exit. Be a little bit careful with this outside curb. It shouldn't cause too many problems, but can occasionally bite you off of that turn as well. Don't bring the car all the way over to the inside line because you want to get it squared up for the bottom of the hill. I like to brake pretty much as you go past the start of the curbing. You'll be up in 6th gear and then all the way down into 4th. Try to just keep a little bit of throttle in the car through this corner, just because you find that the back end can kind of dip down, squat quite a lot, and then really rotate round on you as well. So it is really, really tricky to try and get it planted there. Attack the curbing on the exit though, but be very, very careful of the sausage curb on the outside as well, because that one will really, really punish you inside F125. Bring the car back over to the left-hand side though as you make your way up the hill, and just after the end of this curb, you want to flick the car in. Again, in qualifying trim, it's going to be 6th gear completely flat out. In race trim, you're probably going to need to blend the throttle slightly to make sure that you don't run wide and potentially either head into the gravel or pick up a warning on the exit of the corner as well, because that can be very, very easy to do through Campsa. Of course, a very, very short DRS zone down this back straight. Wave to all of the fans that are currently up in the little bridge area, whatever you want to call it. And then in towards the final few corners, you want to be braking just as the tarmac goes from red to green in towards this final sector. From 8th gear all the way down in towards 3rd gear, Again, if you're feeling quite brave, you can try and actually get the front end wedged over that sausage curb, but again, I like to avoid it. I also don't like to let the car run too wide. I try not to follow this red kind of little bit of circuit on the outside. What I prefer to do, if I just reverse back a little bit, is kind of once you've tipped the car in through the apex, try and get a much better line than the one I'm going for here. But once you kind of got the car rotated through the apex, I really like to hold the angle in third gear, short shift up to fourth, and then try to give yourself a straight line run to get over this curbing up towards the top of the hill. Straight line braking, of course, you only want to nudge the brake though in towards this final hairpin of the lap. Third gear on the way through. Again, in qualifying trim, you can leave it in fourth. Short shift back into fourth on the exit just to keep the balance in the rear end in check. Get the car nicely out over this curbing. Flick it in just before you get towards the end of the curb there. And be very, very careful down through these final couple of turns. Like I said, they are completely wide open. This setup is designed that unless you're in a lot of turbulent air from the car in front, the final corners should be completely flat out as well. Bring the car back over to the left-hand side. Be careful not to oversteer if you're on cold, hard tyres. Open up the DRS, and that is going to be a lap then here of the Barcelona circuit. It is really good fun inside F125. I for the first time ever, I feel like I might actually miss this venue in Formula 1 in the future. But yeah, let's head then back to the garage and I'll talk you guys through the setup. Well, here we are then back at base. You can see we're only about 1.2 seconds off of the F1 Esports times here, so I'm actually quite happy with that inside this game. But taking a look then over at the setup, we are slower than GB. He's actually done a very good lap time as well. But in terms then of the aerodynamics, first of all, 37.32, where the cars on F125 are a little bit slower in a straight line, you can get away with slightly less wing angle around this venue. If you're still struggling through the final couple of corners, you can up this to about 40.35, but you are then going to be a sitting duck down the straight, and of course that is going to be the best place to make overtakes around this circuit. 90.30 on the differential. Fairly similar standard to what we've seen a lot throughout F125. Again, where this circuit is pretty much all now long flowing corners, you don't want to allow the back end to kind of step out too much on throttle, but off throttle again, it's worth keeping it a lot more unlocked, just because it allows the rear wheels to kind of spin independently and hopefully reduce rear locking. Completely minimum front and rear camber as well as the toe as well. So again, that just is very meta inside F125. Very, very firm front suspension, completely soft rear suspension, but very soft front and rear anti-roll bars. You guys might remember at Monaco, we actually had these quite firm here, but yeah, Barcelona, again, it's not a particularly bumpy circuit unless you get out over some of the curbs. So yeah, you want really, really soft anti-roll bars, just again to allow the car to kind of rotate around the corners quite nicely. 22.49 ride height. Again, the lower you run this, you're going to have a little bit more straight line speed, but again, beware of those sausage curves, because especially running this low, they will kind of bobble out underneath you. If you're really struggling with it, I would say go up to about 25.52, but you don't really want to be running much higher than that. A 54.99 brake bias here, that's just what worked for me. Again, in race trim, I would probably bring this down to kind of 97 brake pressure, but that's just what I felt comfortable with. And then absolute maximum tyre pressures front and absolute minimum tyre pressure on the rear. Again, for race trim, I would potentially, if you're struggling to manage the rear tyres, I would up these to about 22. It should give you a little bit of a better shot in a Grand Prix. It is a one-stop here. It's actually not a bad one-stop inside F125. Mediums will go to about lap 15, lap 16, and then just take the hard tyres to the end of the Grand Prix. Pretty much as always in F125, avoid the soft tyres like the plague. They don't tend to work pretty much anywhere inside this game. But yeah, hopefully this setup is going to help you guys out. If it does, please do make sure you drop us a like, get yourself subscribed to the channel. And yeah, we'll be back tomorrow, of course, ready in Montreal. Easily one of the toughest circuits on the F1 calendar. But for now then, I'm going to leave you guys with a hot lap here of Barcelona.